Let's get into our first topic now. Is Keir Starmer a weak Prime Minister? Get your calls in now. The Prime Minister has made his third U-turn in a month by agreeing that existing disability benefit claimants can keep their payments. Starmer was forced to make the decision after more than 120 Labour MPs planned to rebel against the proposed cuts. He also rode back on taking away winter fuel payments for pensioners and then changed his stance on a national inquiry into grooming gangs. Next Friday will mark 1 year in power for the Prime Minister. But do you think he's been a strong leader, or would you say he's actually been a bit weak? Marvyn, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't think this is weakness. I think this is wisdom. I think this is counsel. And I think this is the whole point of leadership, is that you're meant to speak to your leadership team and the people that you are working with to discover what their best approach is. He has a big problem in terms of finances where he has to cut the expenditure of this government. It continues to rise, and as the population grows and gets older, it's rising even faster. Now he's approaching it in terms of proposing different ideas as to what we can do. And I think that's the best way to do it, because it's not as simple as just saying, oh, I'm the leader and I'm going to cut these things and then whatever happens, happens, right? He's responsible to everybody, even the people who don't vote for him, even the people who would dare to call him weak. I think it's insulting to call the leader of our country weak because he's genuinely receiving counsel from the people around him. And I will like to say that he hasn't had free U-turns. The national inquiry into grooming gangs is not a U-turn. The whole point of it is, again, it's a consultation. But two, there have been previous governments who have had over 15 years to investigate this issue and haven't done it. And we are not going to investigate this issue based on race baiting, but we will investigate the issue centered on children who genuinely need this investigation. And the foundings have been incredibly important. And now the changes which have been asked for by tons of independent groups for the last 15 years can now be made under this government, which I think is a positive.
The only racism I recognise in the grooming gangs, by the way, was towards the white working class girls, but that's another subject.
What?
Yeah, you're saying it's race baiting. No, I think the grooming gangs thing that Keir Starmer has U-turned on didn't say anything new. They've known all of this for years, and he resisted it. But we're talking about Keir. He resisted it and resisted it. There is nothing in that man that resembles a leader, a prime minister to me, because to be either, you need to have passion and conviction and to believe in something and to stand for something. And these U-turns are of no shock because he's like an empty grey suit technocrat. He doesn't even feel connected to the land or the people here. He's far more comfortable swanning around the global stage and, you know, clinking champagne glasses at Davos, which he said he was much more comfortable at than Westminster. So people don't feel safe with him, I don't feel, because they can't predict what he's going to do or what he's going to say because he doesn't stand for anything.
That is really much the populist kind of rhetoric, where it's like, I want passion and I want people to be loving the land. And it's like, you're stoking these ideas that he's not particularly British or he doesn't represent
I think saying he prefers Davos to Westminster is a symbol of globalism.
Don't serve left or right is literally what leadership is. Leading a country. Rather than leading his particular side of constituents, he's leading the country. There's things that he's done that I don't agree with. There's the migration approach and the language he used around migration, I don't agree with at all. I don't recognise that from Labour. But at the same time, he is leading a country, and that's what the country has asked for. For me, that's great leadership.
So Marvyn, he's so really here. He's had 26 trips before his first year is up already. I think he's away again next week. He doesn't, when people are in crisis, whether it's cost of living crisis, whether they're feeling nervous about law and order, the open borders security situation that both the Tories and governments have forced on this country and the high risk to the public that has created, you want someone to feel like they care and speaks from the heart. He's reading there. His voice is like white noise, like scraping its nails down a blackboard. He cannot hold attention, therefore he cannot inspire, and he cannot inspire confidence from his own party, which is dangerous because he is the only barrier in that party against the hard left getting more powerful. And I think he's vulnerable in the party with all the U-turns because they think they've got him on a leash now.
Let's see what you guys think at home. Rob from Cumbria, do you think Keir Starmer is a weak Prime Minister for making all these U-turns?
Yes, I think he's a weak Prime Minister. I was always told managers manage and leaders lead. And if you're a good leader, you lead the people with you. And he's got a massive majority and he seems unable to lead his party to get things through. You know, I mean, they're making amendments to bills and he's having to change. And at the time where we need strong, decisive leadership, when we have the troubles around the world with Ukraine and Iran and Israel and other places, the last thing we need is a Prime Minister who's weak. And he looks like a weak sitting duck at the moment. And I would be surprised if he's the next Prime Minister, if he's the leader of the Labour Party going into the next election, to be honest.
Wow. Okay.
And it seems to be like Nigel Farage is dictating the policy of the country at the moment, and it looks like Starmer's running scared.
Yeah.
That part I do agree with, and I don't necessarily make that a fault of Keir Starmer. I think is anything that Reform say becomes a national conversation straight away, and then it takes him away from actually running this country. I think the Overton window of conversation in politics in this country has gone so far left that right.
No, I agree with you. It has
so far right,
left in Westminster.
but so far out of order that we're not actually even talking about the things that are genuinely going to drive change and impact. We're making all these sound bites and these sort of platitudes towards leadership, but genuine leadership is about taking a whole country in one direction. But to do that, we need to fix the economy of this country, which currently are in much worse than anybody is probably aware of. And when we start there, we can start talking about vision and other things in this country.
You have to, as a leader, take the people with you. Otherwise, for a leader to run on a manifesto that is so full of U-turns, people feel very uncomfortable with the state of democracy at the moment and whether to trust manifestos. And I think Keir's really damaged that, as well as the Tories. But to lead, you have to persuade people of your argument and to get them to come with you. Keir doesn't even have that in his party. And now the left in the party, or the sort of socialist populists, if you like, in the party, are going to think they can U-turn him on everything. And we're going to creep further and further into mega higher taxes, because that's where the hard left always takes you, more mega immigration. And people don't feel like we've got grown-ups, in the room anymore. Not that we had with the Tories, but there we go.
Rob, thank you so much for your points. Let's go to Brad in the West Midlands. Brad, do you agree with Rob? Do you think this does show that Keir is weak?
No, he's not weak.
Tell me more.
Because they've inherited a legacy of debt from the Tories, which is not the Labour Party's fault. They're trying their best to juggle the finances about, and this decision with the PIP is the right one. So at the end of the day, he has come to the right decision. That is all that matters. Mm-hmm. Nothing else matters.
But does it not worry you that this man who knew he was going to take power for a good few months before the election, it was very obvious he was going to win, had the time to organise policies in a way that there was going to be consultation with everyone, with the party, and form policies that they could implement that would work? Instead, they seem very rushed through. It seems like he hasn't really spoken to his party very much about them, which is why there's all this backlash. And I don't think that smacks of very good leadership. They've been too quick off the mark, not enough consultation, and it worries me what else is down the line for Keir.
Brad, I'm just going to say I agree with you, and not just agree with you, but I think it's important that people understand that the level of debt that this country is actually in, and the amount of debt it's servicing, which is 150 billion every single year, is an insane amount of money to try and find. And so, yes, you're going to get into hairs of where does this money come from? And we're trying to save 5 billion in doing this particular work stream, and it's still not going to touch the surface of what is needed. He needs to make lots of really, really tough decisions, and some people are going to have to find it really difficult.
But he's just signed off 30 billion to the Chagos Islands as if it's free money.
But every single group that is going to be affected by changes of policy in this country, someone's going to have to feel it. And the most people that are supported are the elderly, are the young people, are the people that are out of work. And so it's a deeply unfortunate situation that we have to keep finding those solutions for it. And the Chagos Islands is the right thing to do. We still respect international law. I know people on your side don't think that matters, or any other territory matters.
There was no duty for us. You cannot say that's surrender of British taxpayers' money. 30 billion that apparently...
a directive that we are legally occupying those islands, and we should return them.
So we gave them to a country that never owned them. We've given them to another coloniser. Well done.
Thank you very much, Brad. Let's go to Danny from Cambridgeshire. What are your thoughts? Do you think this third U-turn is the most humiliating yet for Keir Starmer?
Massively so, in all honesty.
Do you think it's because it's having an accumulative effect, or do you think it's the nature of what's happened?
I think it's all of it, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Personally, I think he's like a swan on the outside, gliding across the surface, like everything's all sweet and dandy, and underneath he's paddling like mad because he knows he's in trouble and panicking like hell. If he wants to try and save any money, instead of picking on the disabled people, why not enforce the law that's already there? You have to apply for jobs and be seen to be applying for jobs to get your benefits. No, there's too many glassbacks in this country that are getting away with it because they can swing the lead to too many people and get away with it. No, you apply for jobs, you get out there off your backside and get seen to be trying to get a job. Then maybe the rest of the country might say, yeah, fair enough, you're doing something, we'll help you. You ain't doing nothing to help the country, so why the country should help you? It's disgusting. And Marvyn, you need to give your head a wobble, mate.
Is that my head? Oh.
Yeah, your head, mate.
No, but I do think that when we're talking about where does this money come from, there is going to have to be some tough decisions made. But I think the adjustments and where they come from are slow. When he first came into power, the first thing that he said is that it's about efficiencies. And efficiencies, unfortunately, is an unspectacular slow burn.
He is a year
shifting.
into...
A year is not particularly long after a very long time of discrepancies. So transforming, if you go to any company, any organisation and talk about transformation, it takes 10 years to do, unfortunately. So the idea that you can slash it, because the US government have attempted to slash the Doge group or whatever they are called, and they have absolutely made a pig's ear of it. So the reality is that if you want a stable country and a stable transition for change, it has to be done over time.
We are anything but stable.
Very quickly, I'm almost done. If you're going to give the Tories 15 years to come up with ideas and mess up the country and expect anyone to change it in a year, then we all need to get our head bobbling. Is it bobbling? Is that what you said?
But Danny, you are spot on. You said something really interesting, because this is what I'd do if I had 24 hours in power. The largest growing age group of those becoming more economically inactive is 18 to 24. And I say 3 strikes and you're out. If you get 2 or 3 job offers in a row and you say no to them, that's it, benefits stop. Now that is a very simple idea. It's common sense and it motivates people to get into work. It's not fair that people in this country live off the backs of British workers paying for their lifestyle. So why didn't Labour go for the shirkers instead of the disabled and most vulnerable? I totally agree. Well, that's a good point.
Thank you very much, Danny.